The alien assassin moved like a shadow, silent and deadly. Every step was precise, measured, controlled. Her species called her the perfect hunter, bred for one purpose, to track, corner, and eliminate. And now she was on a mission that could decide the fate of an entire sector. Her target, a single human soldier. He was the last survivor of his kind in this region, and her orders were clear. Kill him. Leave nothing behind. She had been chasing him for days, across ruined cities and scorched forests, through jagged mountains and rivers that cut deep into the land. She followed his trail. Every night she would find signs of him, footprints in ash, broken branches, faint heat trails. Yet he seemed always one step ahead, clever, careful, as though he knew she was coming. The first day of the hunt, she observed him from a distance. He moved cautiously, scanning the surroundings with alert eyes. Even though he seemed human, fragile and small compared to her, he carried an energy that made her pause. She had hunted hundreds before, from weak prey to strong opponents, but something about this human unsettled her. He didn't flee in fear. He didn't panic. He survived. That alone earned her respect she refused to admit. By the second day, the weather turned against her. Rain fell in sheets, soaking her body and chilling her bones. Her suit, designed for stealth and speed, was heavy with water. Her muscles ached from the constant movement, from the leaps over fallen trees, the climbs up slippery rocks. Still, she did not slow down. She told herself it was her duty, her orders. Nothing else mattered. Night fell and the human disappeared into the shadows. She tracked him by scent and heat, but he left a complex pattern of false trails, designed to confuse even the most advanced hunters. She smiled faintly beneath her helmet. Clever, she thought. He is clever. Not like the stories her commanders told. They had said humans were reckless, weak, unworthy of fear. But she was learning that humans could be smart, patient, and dangerous in ways her species could not understand. On the third day, she found him again. He was sitting by a ruined home, carefully picking through debris. She saw him pause, gently picking up a small object, a broken toy, and placing it on a stone. Her hand tightened around the hilt of her blade. Humans were supposed to be merciless. They were supposed to destroy, to kill, to take without thought. Yet here was one, showing tenderness in a ruined world. She could not understand it. The hunt continued. Each day brought new challenges. She dodged traps he had set, narrowly avoided ambushes, and felt her own injuries begin to slow her down. A cut along her thigh burned when she moved. Her shoulder throbbed from a misstep on jagged rocks. Hunger gnawed at her. Fatigue weighed her down like chains. Yet still, she pushed forward, driven by duty, by honor, by the thought that her success would be praised. Her name remembered. As she tracked him deeper into the wilderness, she began to notice more than his cleverness. She noticed his humanity. Even in war, even in survival, he acted with a strange sense of purpose. He did not kill recklessly. He spared what he could. He protected small creatures from danger, helped the injured, and even left supplies for those who might come after him. Her people told her that humans were cruel and selfish, but what she saw did not match the stories. By the fifth day, exhaustion began to cloud her mind. Hunger made her vision flicker. Her muscles trembled with pain. She had not rested, not properly. She had not eaten, and yet she could not let him escape. Her mission was all that mattered. She reminded herself that hesitation was dangerous, weakness was fatal, and failure was not an option. That night, she found him again, this time in a small clearing surrounded by burned trees. He was tending to a fire, small and careful, cooking food with skills honed by years of survival. She watched him quietly from the shadows. For a moment, she allowed herself to admire his resilience, his determination, and his calm in the midst of chaos. She shook her head and forced herself to focus. Admiration would not complete her mission. The human must die. Her thoughts wandered briefly, betraying her inner conflict. She wondered how he had survived so long, alone against her and perhaps others. She wondered what had made him so strong, so patient, so human. And somewhere deep inside, she began to feel something she had never allowed herself to feel before: uncertainty. The mission was simple. The orders were clear: kill the human, end the resistance. Yet every moment she spent watching him, she felt a strange pull, a question she could not answer. Could a human be worth more than a target? Could he be more than prey? The forest around her whispered with the sounds of night. Insects chirping, leaves rustling, distant cries of animals. The human sat by the fire, eating quietly, unaware of her presence. For the first time, she considered another possibility. Perhaps she did not need to kill him immediately. Perhaps she could wait, observe, learn more. Perhaps somehow there was a reason he had survived so long. But the mission always returned to her mind, sharp and insistent. Her superiors had made it clear. Failure was unacceptable. If she did not eliminate the last human fighter, her people would see it as weakness. She had trained her whole life for this. She had been bred for this. She could not afford to feel pity, to hesitate, to question. As she crouched in the shadows preparing to strike, she took a deep breath. Her body was tired, but her mind was sharp. She would hunt. She would follow him through hell itself if needed. She would not fail. Not yet. And somewhere in the distance, the human looked up at the stars. Unaware of the alien assassin watching him, he sighed softly, as if carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. She watched him, heart pounding, mind racing. Something about him stirred a feeling she could not name. The hunt was far from over, and neither of them knew that the events of the next few days would change both their lives forever. This part sets up the hunter and the hunted dynamic, establishes emotional tension, and shows the human as clever and resilient while the alien assassin begins to question her mission. The dawn broke cold and gray, and the alien assassin stirred from a restless sleep under the thin cover of trees. Her muscles ached, but she moved silently as always. The human had vanished during the night, leaving only faint traces in the soft earth. His disappearance did not surprise her. He had always been clever, always one step ahead. Yet each disappearance frustrated her, fueling a deeper hunger to close the distance between them. She followed his tracks, careful and patient. Broken branches, crushed grass, faint heat marks, all told her where he had gone. The world around her was harsh and unyielding. Jagged rocks, thorny bushes, and icy streams that cut through her legs as she moved. She ignored the cold, ignored the pain, focusing only on the rhythm of the hunt. The human was her mission. Nothing else mattered. By midday, she saw him again. He was standing on a ridge, looking down into a valley filled with fog. His posture was tense, alert, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. She crouched behind a boulder, watching. Even from a distance, she could see the scars on his body, the small wounds he had ignored, the way his hands trembled slightly. Her training told her to strike then, to end the chase while he was unaware. Yet something inside her hesitated. She watched him move through the fog with careful steps, each movement precise and purposeful. He was not running blindly. He was navigating, surviving, and planning. She realized that he was more than a human soldier. He was a survivor, someone who understood the world in ways she did not. Her respect for him grew, though she would never admit it even to herself. As night fell, the valley became a labyrinth of shadows. The human had disappeared again, slipping through terrain that would have trapped anyone else. The alien assassin followed, though her body protested. Hunger and exhaustion gnawed at her, slowing her pace. Her mind began to wander, something she rarely allowed. She thought about the human, alone, surrounded by death, yet still moving forward, still surviving. It was strange, unsettling, and intriguing. Her foot caught on a hidden root, and she stumbled. Pain shot through her side. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to continue. Each step was agony, but retreat was not an option. Her people would see failure as weakness. She would not allow that, not now, not ever. She came upon a small stream, and the human was already there. He crouched by the water, washing his hands and face. His movements were slow, careful, almost meditative. He looked up, sensing her presence, though she had not made a sound. For a moment, their eyes met across the gap of water and rocks. She expected fear. She expected a quick attack. But he simply nodded once, then returned to his task. It was a simple gesture, yet it struck her deeply. Humans were supposed to panic when hunted, supposed to fight desperately or flee blindly, but he did neither. He lived with awareness, with caution, with intelligence. Her hands itched for her weapon, but her mind felt a strange admiration. The night became colder. The assassin set up a small hidden camp, watching the human from a distance. Hunger made her hands shake, and exhaustion made her eyelids heavy. Yet she could not sleep. She thought about him. Why did he survive? How did he remain calm under pressure? What gave him this strange strength that went beyond muscles or skill? By the third night, She realized she was close to exhaustion. Her wounds, small and ignored at first, now throbbed with sharp pain. A cut along her arm had opened, and her shoulder burned with fatigue. She knew she could not continue at full strength much longer. Yet the human continued, moving through the night, alert, strong, alive. She began to feel frustration, anger, and something else, something dangerous. Doubt. It crept into her mind like a shadow. Her mission was clear. Her orders were simple: kill him, and the last human fighter. And yet every time she watched him, every time she saw his small acts of survival and kindness, she questioned herself. Could a human be more than prey? Could he be something else? On the fourth day, the human set a trap. She had followed him closely, confident she would catch him. But when she stepped into the clearing, a pit opened beneath her, hidden by leaves and branches. She fell hard, twisting her ankle and scraping her side. Pain exploded through her body, and for the first time in years she felt fear, not of dying but of failing. The human appeared at the edge of the clearing, his expression calm, almost detached. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply watched. Her instincts screamed to strike, to flee, to do something, but her body refused to obey. She struggled to get out of the pit, realizing the human's cleverness was far beyond what she had imagined. "You're fast," he said quietly, his voice carrying across the clearing. But not fast enough. She glared at him, hate and frustration boiling inside. "I will end you," she whispered, though her words sounded hollow even to herself. "You might," he replied, "but not today. Not yet." For the first time, she saw not just survival in his eyes, but understanding. He was aware of her strength, and somehow aware of her mind. The connection terrified her. She was supposed to be the hunter, and yet she felt observed, judged, challenged. The night was long and bitterly cold. She dragged herself from the pit, using every ounce of strength to keep moving. She treated her wounds as best she could, though pain lingered with each step. The human disappeared into the darkness once more, leaving her to stumble after him, aching, hungry, exhausted. By the fifth day, something inside her had shifted. The hunt was no longer simple. She admired him, respected him, and she hated herself for doing so. He was supposed to be prey, weak and mortal, yet he survived where others would have died. He was clever where she had thought humans foolish, and slowly she began to wonder if the orders she followed blindly were wrong. She paused at the edge of a cliff, watching him disappear into a forest below. Her mind raced. The mission, the orders, the duty, all clashed with what she felt. Something deep inside her whispered a dangerous thought. What if killing him was not the right choice? What if he was worth more alive than dead? But she could not act on that thought, not yet. She had been trained for obedience, for focus, for execution. She would follow the hunt. She would not fail. Not yet. And somewhere in the darkness, the human paused, looking back over his shoulder, sensing her presence yet not running. She realized then, for the first time, that this chase was more than a battle of strength or skill. It was a test of spirit, of endurance, of something far greater than either of them could yet understand. The hunt would continue. And both hunter and hunted would soon discover that survival was more than skill. It was choice. This part focuses on the intensity of the chase, shows the human's cleverness and survival instincts, and begins to plant emotional conflict in the alien assassin, setting up the transformation for later parts. The alien assassin had never felt weakness like this before. Her body screamed with pain, her muscles burned with exhaustion, and every step became a battle against her own limits. She had been hunting the human for nearly a week, following him across forests, rivers, and broken lands. Each day had tested her, pushing her to the edge of endurance. Yet she had survived, and until now, her determination had been enough. But that morning the world seemed to turn against her. Heavy clouds rolled over the mountains, spilling cold rain in sheets that drenched her to the bone. The rivers she had crossed before were now swollen and violent, and the mud sucked at her boots with every step. Her wounds, small at first, now throbbed with relentless pain. The cut along her shoulder burned whenever she moved, and a deep bruise on her side made breathing difficult. Hunger gnawed at her insides. Exhaustion weighed on her like a lead cloak. She paused on a ridge, leaning against a jagged rock to catch her breath. Her mind raced, analyzing every step the human might take. She knew he was ahead, clever as always, leaving a trail meant to mislead. He was a survivor, yes, but she had been trained to anticipate survival. She had been bred to predict movement, to follow instinct. And yet, even with all her training, he remained elusive, always just out of reach. The day passed in a blur of pursuit. She climbed cliffs slick with rain, struggled through dense forests, and leapt across ravines with shaking limbs. Her vision blurred with fatigue, and the world seemed to tilt around her. She was no longer the perfect hunter. She was human in her own way, tired, vulnerable, and fragile. And the thought terrified her. By nightfall, she finally saw him. He had stopped near a ruined village, crouching beside a small fire he had built with skill and care. Smoke curled into the night sky, carrying warmth she had almost forgotten existed. Her instincts told her to strike, to end the hunt here and now. But something inside her hesitated. She had watched him for days. She had seen his cleverness, his caution, his survival skills. She had seen him act with care toward small creatures, heal minor injuries on his own body, and leave food for others who might come after him. And now, as she crouched in the shadows, drenched, shivering, and broken, she felt a strange pull, a mixture of admiration and something more dangerous. She had begun to care, though she would never admit it. The rain intensified, drumming on the ruined roofs and slick stones. Her body gave way on a narrow path along the cliffside. Her foot slipped on the mud, her ankle twisted, and she fell hard against jagged rocks. Pain exploded through her leg, her side, and her shoulder. She gasped, unable to move. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. The human, sensing movement, appeared in the clearing below. His eyes, calm and observant, searched the shadows. He did not raise a weapon. He did not call her out. He simply stepped closer, cautiously, as if testing the air around him. She could see the tension in his posture, the alertness honed by years of survival, and yet there was no malice, no immediate intent to kill. She tried to pull herself up, but pain immobilized her. She realized with a sinking heart that she was trapped. Her mission, her orders, everything she had trained for was slipping away. She could not continue the hunt. She was no longer the hunter. She was prey to her own injuries and fatigue. The human knelt beside her, his hands moving quickly to assess her condition. He spoke softly in a voice that carried neither fear nor anger. "You're hurt," he said simply. "You need help. Stop fighting it." Her instincts screamed at her. "Attack him, kill him, complete the mission." But her body refused to obey. She was too weak to move. The pain was overwhelming, the cold unrelenting, and strangely a flicker of relief stirred within her. Why?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from exertion. "Why help me? I'm your enemy. I am supposed to die." He shook his head, his expression unreadable. "Because letting someone die when you can help is not weakness. It's humanity. And even enemies deserve that." The words confused her. Her species taught that humans were weak, cruel, and selfish, that they survived by killing others. And yet here was one offering her aid, not for advantage, not for gain, but simply because he could. The thought unsettled her more than any blade or weapon ever could. He worked quickly, cleaning the cuts along her arm, wrapping her shoulder with cloth torn from his own supplies. His hands were rough but steady. Every movement was careful, deliberate, as if he understood her pain better than she did herself. And through it all, he did not ask for anything in return. He did not demand her surrender or question her motives. He simply treated her wounds. She wanted to push him away, to remind herself that he was her enemy. But she could not. Weakness clung to her, and his care became a lifeline she did not know she needed. The fire's warmth seeped into her bones, and slowly, her racing heart began to calm. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the sound of rain on leaves and the occasional crackle of the fire. She drifted in and out of consciousness, feeling pain and fatigue mix with a strange sense of safety. The human stayed nearby, alert, ready to defend himself if necessary, but not intruding. He simply existed there, a quiet guardian in the ruins of a harsh world. When she finally spoke again, it was barely a whisper. "I don't understand you." He smiled faintly, a tired, small smile that did not reach his eyes. "You don't have to. Most people don't. You just have to survive, same as I do." For the first time in days, she let herself feel something beyond the hunt. Fear mingled with gratitude, suspicion mixed with curiosity, and exhaustion blended with awe. The human had survived her pursuit not by violence alone, but by intelligence, patience, and, most confounding of all, compassion. The night deepened, and the rain slowed to a drizzle. The assassin closed her eyes. Not in sleep, but in a fragile rest she had not allowed herself for years. She felt the warmth of the fire, the steady presence of the human nearby, and a strange, unfamiliar thought crept into her mind. Perhaps survival was not about strength alone. Perhaps it was also about choice, trust, and connection. And for the first time, the alien assassin realized something terrifying and exhilarating. The hunt had changed her more than the human ever could. This part focuses on the turning point of the story. The assassin's body breaks. The human shows unexpected care and emotional tension deepens. It sets the stage for her inner conflict and eventual transformation. The morning light filtered through the broken trees, casting soft patterns over the alien assassin's face. Her body ached, every muscle reminding her of the fall, the chase, and the relentless pursuit. She expected pain, hunger, and fatigue, but not this. A strange calm settling in her chest as she opened her eyes and realized she was alive. The human was there, as always, tending to the small fire. He moved with a quiet confidence, carefully adjusting the branches, feeding the flames, making sure warmth reached where it was most needed. He had left nothing for himself, it seemed. Everything he did was for her comfort, for her survival. It was confusing. She had been trained to expect cruelty, deception, and the constant push of self-interest in humans. And yet, here he was, offering nothing but care. Her first instinct was to pull away, to hide, to sharpen her claws and fight. She was a hunter, a warrior, a being bred for killing. She should not need help. She should not want it. Yet the pain in her body and the warmth of the fire made her hands tremble with relief. She realized she had spent days without real rest, without anyone watching over her. The human's presence was unexpected, unwelcome, and comforting. "You're awake," he said without surprise. His voice was calm, quiet, carrying no judgment, no accusation. "Just observation. She replied, voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. Her words felt strange, foreign to her own ears. "You were hurt badly," he said simply. "You can't move properly yet. Rest." She wanted to argue, to remind him she was a hunter, not some helpless creature. But her body betrayed her. She could not argue. She could not move. She could only watch him as he prepared a small meal, cutting pieces of dried meat, lighting another small fire, and setting a few herbs she did not recognize by her side. "Why?" she asked finally after a long silence. "Why are you helping me?" "I am your enemy. I am supposed to die." He looked at her, eyes steady, neither soft nor hard, simply observing. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because letting someone suffer when you can help is not weakness. It's choice. You choose survival just as I choose to help. That's all." The alien assassin blinked, confusion tightening around her heart. Her species had taught her that humans were cruel, selfish, and violent, that they survived by taking, by hurting, by killing. And yet this one human was defying every story, every lesson she had learned. He did not attack. He did not deceive. He simply cared. Her chest tightened as she watched him work. His hands were skilled but gentle, carefully tending to the cuts along her arm and the bruise across her side. Every movement spoke of experience, patience, and most surprisingly, empathy. It was alien to her, something she had never encountered, and yet it warmed her in ways she could not understand. Hours passed. She tried to sleep, to rest, to let her body heal. But her mind was alive, turning over every moment of the past days. The hunt, the cleverness of her prey, the unexpected kindness. She realized with a jolt that she was no longer thinking of him as prey. She was thinking of him as someone worth noticing, worth understanding, worth trusting, even just a little. He offered her water and food, patiently waiting while she ate slowly, unable to force herself to hurry. He did not watch her with suspicion or expectation. He did not ask for answers, for allegiance, for promises. He simply provided, and in that simplicity lay a strange power that unsettled her more than any weapon ever could. "Rest more," he said at one point, sitting near her and tending to the fire. "You need strength. The world is not kind to the weak, but it can be cruel to the reckless too." She wanted to speak, to argue, to show that she was neither weak nor reckless, but the truth pressed down on her. She was tired, exhausted, vulnerable, and the thought of moving, of continuing the hunt, filled her with a strange reluctance she could not name. "Humans," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I thought you were different." "Different?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Cruel," she admitted. "Selfish, dangerous, everything my people said. But you are none of those things." You help, you survive, you care. Her voice trailed off, emotions too tangled to put into words. He nodded slowly. Not all humans are the same. Not all people are the same. Survival doesn't have to be only about strength or killing. Sometimes it's about choices. Sometimes it's about mercy. She stared at him, trying to understand, trying to reconcile the hunter and the healer, the prey and the protector. Her mission, her orders, her purpose all felt distant now, as if they belonged to someone else entirely. She realized something terrifying. She might no longer want to kill him. The fire crackled, throwing flickering shadows across their faces. For the first time in days, she felt a strange peace, a fragile safety, a quiet connection that terrified and intrigued her at the same time. The human, her prey, was no longer simply a target. He was something else. A puzzle, a challenge, a force she could not fight with weapons alone. As night deepened, the rain slowing to a gentle drizzle, she felt herself drift towards sleep. Not because she wanted to rest from the hunt, but because the fire, the warmth, and the human's steady presence allowed her to let go, if only for a moment. She realized as her eyes closed that this was the first time she had truly rested in years. And in that quiet moment, the alien assassin understood a truth she had never admitted. Sometimes the greatest strength lay not in killing, but in trusting. She did not know what the next day would bring. She did not know if she could continue the hunt, or if her orders would demand it. But for now, in the soft glow of the fire and under the careful watch of the human who had saved her life, she allowed herself something she had long thought impossible: hope. Hope that survival could mean more than blood and victory. Hope that even in the chaos of war there could be kindness. Hope that perhaps she could see the world, and him, differently. And for the first time she realized that the hunt was no longer simple. The prey had become something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. A human who could teach her about mercy, resilience, and the fragile, unexpected strength of connection. Days passed in the quiet ruins, under the gentle watch of the human who had saved her life. The alien assassin's body healed slowly, every wound wrapped and tended with care. Her muscles, once screaming with pain, now ached less, replaced by a lingering fatigue that made her rest more willingly. Each morning she would wake to find him nearby, tending the fire, checking their small camp, ensuring she had water, food, and warmth. She was not used to this. She had been trained to fight, to hunt, to survive alone. Dependence was weakness, trust was folly. And yet she found herself watching him, studying him, trying to understand how a human could act with such calm, such patience, such gentleness. "Why do you stay?" she asked one morning, her voice still weak but growing stronger. "Why do you not leave me? Why do you care?" He paused, his hands holding a small pot of water, steam rising gently into the cold morning air. "Because I can," he said simply. "Because leaving you to die when I can help is not right. You survived long before I found you, and I saw you fall. I could not just walk away." She frowned, her mind trying to make sense of it. "Your people, your species, would not understand. You take lives, fight battles, destroy. You kill without mercy. Why help one enemy?" He shrugged, a small motion, almost weary. "Some people choose differently. Some people understand that survival is not only about strength or victory. Sometimes it is about choice, about doing what is right when you can. That's all." She did not answer immediately. She stared at him, trying to find a flaw in his words, a weakness, something to justify her old beliefs. But there was none. There was only truth in his quiet actions, in the gentle way he cared for her, in the patience with which he allowed her to heal. The days passed with routine. He hunted small game, gathered herbs, built simple shelters, and shared everything he had without complaint. She observed him constantly, learning more about this human than any enemy she had ever tracked. She noticed the way he moved with purpose, the way he scanned the surroundings even in moments of calm, the way he prepared food with care, and the way he rested lightly, ready to react if danger came. He was cautious, intelligent, and alive in ways that were difficult for her to measure. Her admiration grew, though she hated herself for feeling it. She had been trained to see humans as prey, as obstacles, as threats, and yet here was one who had saved her life, who treated her wounds, who did not demand anything, and who acted with kindness even when it could have endangered him. She began to question everything she had been taught. Were all humans cruel? Or was it just the stories she had been told? Could a human be more than survival instinct, more than violence and fear? She wanted answers, and yet she feared the truth. She feared that if she admitted to herself that humans could be good, she would have to question her mission, her orders, and her purpose. And in that fear, she felt something she had never felt before: doubt. "Do you trust me?" she asked one afternoon, voice trembling slightly. He looked up from the small fire he had built, a soft smile on his face. "I do," he said simply. "You are healing. You are strong. And I have seen what you are capable of. But trust is not just about strength. It is about choices. And I choose to trust you." She swallowed, her throat dry. "I do not understand humans," she admitted. "I thought you were different. Cruel, selfish, dangerous. I thought you would kill me or trick me or leave me to die." He shook his head, calm and steady. "Not all of us are like that. Not all people survive by taking what they want. Some survive by helping, by being careful, by choosing kindness when possible. That is my choice. And sometimes it makes all the difference." Her mind spun. She had been trained to see humans in black and white, prey or predator, weak or dangerous. And yet here was one, living in the gray, showing patience, compassion, and strength without killing or hurting. Her admiration for him grew, though she did not fully understand it. For the first time, she began to see the possibility that the hunt, her mission, her orders, her purpose, was not the only truth. She began to see that survival could mean more than strength, more than killing, more than victory. It could mean care. It could mean mercy. It could mean choices beyond instinct. She noticed small things about him each day. The way he smiled faintly when he saw a bird near the camp. The way his hands shook slightly when he moved too quickly. The quiet patience in his eyes when she struggled with her own recovery. Each small detail made him more human in ways she could feel but not name. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with orange and red, she spoke again. "Do you fear me?" she asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. He looked at her steadily. "I do," he admitted. "I fear your strength. I fear what you are capable of. But fear does not stop me from helping. It does not stop me from choosing what is right. Fear is part of life. What you do with it matters more." The alien assassin's chest tightened. She had expected fear to make him attack, to flee, to act selfishly, but he did none of those things. He acted with clarity, patience, and courage, without violence, without aggression. She felt something shift inside her. She felt a strange respect, deeper than admiration. She felt a stirring of something more dangerous: connection. That night, she lay near the fire, watching him carefully, studying his every movement. She realized that she was no longer only thinking about the hunt. She was thinking about him. She was wondering about him, noticing him, and terrifyingly caring about him. And in the quiet of that night, the alien assassin understood something she could not yet name. She was beginning to question the mission, her orders, and everything she had believed about humans. She was beginning to see that the human she had been sent to kill was not merely prey, but something extraordinary, a being capable of kindness, patience, and courage beyond her understanding. For the first time in her life, she wondered if she could betray her mission, not out of weakness, but out of choice. The thought was frightening, intoxicating, and liberating all at once, and somewhere deep inside, she realized that this human, her prey, her challenge, her unexpected teacher, had begun to change her in ways no battle, no training, and no order ever could. The questions would not stop. The doubts would not fade. And yet, in that quiet camp with the fire crackling and the human watching over her, she allowed herself to feel something she had never allowed before. Hope. Hope that the hunt could end without blood. Hope that survival could mean more than strength. Hope that even enemies could choose mercy, care, and understanding. And in that fragile hope, the alien assassin felt the first real stirrings of something she had long thought impossible: trust. This part focuses on her emotional awakening, admiration turning into trust, and the internal questioning of her mission, preparing for the turning point where she will face a critical choice between duty and empathy. The alien assassin woke to a sky painted in pale pink and gold, the soft light spilling through the trees. She stretched carefully, testing the strength in her limbs. Pain lingered, but it no longer dominated her senses. Her wounds were healing faster than she had expected, thanks to the human's care. She realized, with a strange mix of gratitude and unease, that she had come to rely on him, not only for survival but for comfort. The human was already awake, tending to the small fire that had become their constant companion. He moved silently, efficiently, yet there was a gentleness to his actions that she had never seen in anyone before. His presence, once a source of tension and threat, now felt like a quiet anchor. She watched him carefully, her instincts still alert, yet her mind wandered in ways she did not expect. "You move better today," he said without looking up, his voice calm and even. "Your body is healing. Your strength is returning." She nodded, uncertain how to respond. "Thanks," she muttered, the word feeling foreign on her tongue. She had never thanked anyone in her life, not a comrade, not a superior, not an enemy. And yet the feeling inside her demanded it. He glanced at her, a small, faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You do not have to say it. Actions are enough." The day stretched on with small tasks, gathering water, checking traps, moving through the forest carefully. She followed him at a distance, not out of suspicion, but out of habit, though she began to notice his subtle movements, the way he listened to the wind, the way his eyes scanned the shadows, the way he paused to observe small details that others might ignore. It amazed her. Humans were supposed to be reckless, impulsive, fragile, yet here was one, alive in a harsh world, not only surviving but thriving. He did not strike blindly, did not attack without reason, and yet his every movement was precise, efficient, and intelligent. She began to understand why he had lasted so long, why he had survived her relentless pursuit. As evening approached, she tried to engage him in conversation. Why do you stay with me?" she asked again, needing to understand. "If I am your enemy, why do you help me?" He looked at her carefully as if choosing his words. "Because you are alive. Because survival is not about revenge or hatred. And because sometimes even enemies deserve care. I saw you fall. I could not leave you to die. That is enough reason." She frowned, confused by the simplicity of his answer. Her species had taught her that survival was about strength, power, and domination. Weakness was punished. Mercy was a mistake. And yet, here was a human, defying every lesson she had been taught. His actions, small and quiet, were teaching her something she could not yet name. The night was cold, but she did not retreat from the fire. She sat nearby, her body leaning slightly against a tree, her eyes fixed on him as he prepared a meal. The smell of roasted meat and herbs filled the air, and she realized that it was more than hunger that drew her to the fire. It was the human himself, steady, patient, and alive in a way that stirred feelings she had never experienced. "You fear me?" she asked softly, breaking the silence that had stretched between them. He paused, eyes meeting hers. "I do," he admitted. "Your strength, your skill, you are dangerous. But fear does not stop me from choosing what is right. It never should." She blinked, startled by the honesty. Fear, yes, she understood. Danger, yes, but choosing right? That was foreign. That was human. That was something she had never considered in all her years of training. The fire flickered, casting shadows across their faces, and she felt a strange warmth in her chest. A part of her wanted to recoil, to retreat, to sharpen her instincts and prepare for the inevitable hunt that would resume. And yet, another part of her, stronger, quieter, insistent, wanted to stay, to observe, to understand this human who had turned her world upside down. Days passed in this fragile rhythm. She healed. She moved with more strength. And slowly her walls began to crack. The hunter who had once seen humans as prey, as obstacles, as threats, now saw him differently. She watched him laugh softly to himself at some small discovery, saw him smile faintly when a bird landed near the fire, and noticed how his hands shook slightly when he moved too quickly. He was human, fragile, alive, and yet stronger than anyone she had ever faced. She realized that the hunt, once simple and clear, had become something far more complex. She no longer thought of him as prey. She no longer wanted to kill him, and she did not understand the feelings rising inside her. Curiosity, admiration, respect, and something deeper, something dangerous. One evening, as the sky turned deep orange with the last light of day, he offered her a piece of bread, freshly baked over the fire. She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed, and she felt a spark, subtle but undeniable, that made her pulse quicken. "You are changing," he said quietly, not accusing, just observing. "Do not know what you mean," she replied, though she knew the truth. She was changing. Her perception of humans, of herself, of survival itself, was shifting. The hunter who had once been driven by orders and duty now questioned everything she had believed. "You think too much," he said gently, smiling faintly. "Sometimes it is enough to act with care, to choose what is right, and to trust." Trust. The word echoed in her mind, foreign and frightening. She had never trusted anyone, not her comrades, not her commanders, not even herself. And yet here was a human asking her to consider it, asking her to live in a world where choice mattered more than orders. As night fell and the stars appeared overhead, she lay near the fire, watching him quietly. The crackling flames reflected in her eyes, and she realized that she no longer feared him. She feared something else entirely. The feelings that were growing inside her, feelings she did not understand and could not name. She was beginning to care. She was beginning to admire. She was beginning to see him not as prey, not as an enemy, but as something human, something extraordinary, something worth understanding. And in that quiet moment, under the pale light of the stars, the alien assassin understood that her hunt was no longer only about survival, duty, or orders. It was about choices. It was about connection. It was about something stronger than fear or strength, something she had never felt before, and something that could change everything. The walls she had built around herself, walls of duty, obedience, and hatred, were beginning to crumble, and she realized with a mixture of fear and anticipation that there was no turning back. The human had not only saved her life, he had begun to save her soul. The dawn broke soft and pale, washing the forest in gold and silver. The alien assassin stretched her limbs, fully healed now, the pain of her wounds gone but replaced by a restless energy she did not understand. She had followed the human through days of survival, nights of quiet reflection, and moments of connection she could not name. And now, as she watched him move through the clearing, tending the small fire, she knew the moment of choice had arrived. The hunt was over, not because he had been caught, not because she had defeated him, but because she could not continue. Her body was strong, but her heart, her mind, her soul had changed in ways that made killing him impossible. Every instinct, every training she had ever known, told her to strike, to finish her mission. But every thought, every memory of his kindness, his patience, his quiet strength held her back. He looked up at her, eyes calm and steady, as if he knew the battle inside her. "You're awake early," he said softly. "The forest is quiet. The world is still." She began, then faltered. Words felt heavy in her throat, too many to fit into a single thought. She was a hunter, trained for clarity, for precision, for action. Now words seemed inadequate. She could not tell him what she felt, not entirely, not yet. "You don't have to say anything," he said, as if reading her thoughts. Actions speak louder than words. She studied him, seeing not prey, not enemy, but something far greater. A human who had survived, endured, and taught her about care and choice. She remembered every time he had tended her wounds, every meal he had shared, every quiet moment when he had simply been present, waiting and watching. And she realized something astonishing. She had come to trust him completely. "I cannot kill you," she said finally, voice soft but firm. "I was sent to end your life. But I cannot, Her words trailed off, swallowed by emotion she could not name. He smiled faintly, a small curve of his lips, and he did not move closer, did not demand explanation. He simply nodded. "I know," he said, "and I'm glad. Some hunts, and not with victory or death, but with understanding, with choice." Her chest tightened. Choice. The word echoed in her mind, the same word that had haunted her since the first night he tended her wounds. Choice was something her people did not value. Obedience was strength. Duty was life. And yet here was a human who had shown her that choices could be stronger than orders, that mercy could be more powerful than vengeance. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of earth and fire. The forest seemed to hold its breath. She felt her heart race, not with fear, not with anger, but with something entirely new, something dangerous and thrilling. Connection, admiration, something deeper. "I don't understand why you spared me," she said quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Because you were hurt. Because you deserved it," he said simply. "Because sometimes we survive by helping, not by killing. Even enemies deserve that chance. Even hunters, she swallowed, realizing the truth in his words. She had been trained to survive, to dominate, to eliminate threats. Yet she had survived not by strength alone, but by the kindness of one human. And in that survival, she had learned something she had never imagined, that strength and mercy could coexist. That care could be powerful. That connection could change even the most hardened heart. The alien assassin knelt beside the fire, finally letting herself feel fully. She had been alone for so long, relying on skill, instinct, and training. She had thought herself invincible. And yet here she was, alive, healed, and changed, because he had chosen to help her. "I trust you," she said finally. Words simple but filled with weight. "I trust you more than anyone I have ever known." He reached out, placing a hand near hers without touching. A gesture of respect and understanding. "And I trust you," he said softly. Trust is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. She looked into his eyes, feeling the depth of his calm, the certainty of his choices, the warmth of his presence, and in that moment, she knew she could never return to the hunter she had been. The mission, the orders, the duty, they no longer defined her. She had chosen differently. She had chosen life, mercy, and connection. The forest around them seemed to sigh with relief, as if acknowledging the end of the hunt. The human smiled faintly, and she felt her chest tighten with an emotion she could not name. Perhaps gratitude, perhaps admiration, perhaps something closer to hope. "You saved me," she whispered, not just in words, but in thought, in feeling, in every pulse of her body. Not just from myself or from failure, but from everything I thought I had to be. He nodded, quiet, patient, and steady. "And you saved yourself," he said. "By choosing to survive, by choosing mercy, by choosing trust. That is stronger than any weapon." For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to feel complete relief. She had hunted, she had fought, she had endured. And now she had learned something far more important than survival alone. She had learned that choices, compassion, and trust could be the greatest strengths of all. The alien assassin finally rose to her feet, feeling the power in her healed body and the strength in her mind, now expanded by understanding. She could have struck, could have continued the hunt, could have fulfilled her orders, but she did not. Instead, she stood beside the human, in quiet solidarity, and for the first time, she felt something resembling peace. The forest, once a place of chase and danger, now held quiet beauty, birds singing in the distance, the wind brushing leaves gently, the fire crackling softly between them. They had survived not through killing but through understanding, not through domination but through connection. And as the sun rose fully, washing the clearing in gold, the alien assassin realized the truth that had eluded her for so long. The hunt was never about death. It was about learning, about growth, about seeing another being not as prey or enemy, but as someone worthy of trust, respect, and care. She looked at him, and for the first time she smiled, not a smile of caution, not a smile of calculation, but a smile of something entirely new: hope, connection, and life. And in that moment, the human smiled back quietly, softly, and the world felt right. Not because the hunt had ended, but because two beings so different had discovered the power of choice, trust, and mercy together. The forest held its breath no longer. Life continued. And so did they, side by side, hunter and human, survivor and savior, connected in ways that neither orders nor missions nor fear could ever undo. The alien assassin had hunted for days. She had faced pain, exhaustion, and doubt. And yet, in the end, she had found something greater than victory: understanding, compassion, and the courage to choose differently. And that, she realized, was the greatest triumph of all.